Hey Meeple people, and on today's vlog, we're playing Vamp on the Batwalk by Jellyfish Game Studios.
As an immortal vampire, you wouldn't be caught dead in last millennium's attire. But how do you know if you're wearing the latest trends if you can't even see yourself in the mirror? Why, a vampire fashion show, of course! In Vamp on the Batwalk, you will compete in a fashion show against the other vamps. Each round is a series of shows where you'll try to play the winning card. However, you'll only be able to see the back of your cards, not the front. Through careful observation, you'll try to figure out which cards you're holding and which plays will give you a stylish victory.
Welcome Meeple people, and hello Sarah.
Hi there.
So what are we playing on the vlog today, Sarah?
Today we are going to be playing a two-player, oh well I guess you can't see it because the box is part of the thing. We're going to be playing a two-player game of Vamp on the Batwalk from Jellyfish Games. This game is a 2 to 6 player game, and there is a slight variation for 2 players, so we're going to be playing with that today. But essentially this is a trick-taking game where we are vampires competing in a fashion show, and it is really goofy and silly. Would you like me to tell you how it plays?
Please.
Okay, so it's a trick-taking game. If you are familiar with games like Hearts or Spades, you'll kind of have an idea how a trick-taking game plays. If you're not familiar with trick-taking, it's a mechanic where a card is played into a trick. So I play a card face up on the table, and then the next player plays a card face up, and then the next player plays a card, and so on. And typically what happens is the high card of the suit that the leader played will take the trick. So for example, if we're just playing with a standard deck of 52 cards and I play an 8 of hearts and the next player plays a 2 of hearts and then Nick plays a king of hearts, the king of hearts would take the trick, right? They'd get all the cards, they'd take the trick. In some trick-taking games, you can play offsuit. So like if you even if you had a heart, you could play like a spade if you wanted to, right? In some, you don't want to take any tricks. In others, you want to take as many tricks as possible. In some trick-taking games, you want to take like the right amount of tricks, not too many, not too few. There are a lot of variations at this point on the general trick-taking mechanics, but essentially that's kind of how it works. So this is a trick-taking game at its heart, and it's wrapped in this vampire fashion show theme. So what's going to be happening is we are represented by these vampires here, and as they are walking down the Batwalk instead of the catwalk, they will be scoring points the further along the Batwalk they can get. So we want to take a lot of tricks and make our way down the Batwalk as far as possible, and hopefully we will win by having made a lot of tricks. Now, there's almost always like a hook in games like this because there are they are kind of like, they follow like a standard format, right? So the hook in this game is that I don't get to see what my cards are. So this is my hand of cards, and my opponents all get to see what I have, right? But I can't see what I'm holding. I just get to see kind of like their suit, right? So the color is like the suit. So I know what suits of cards I have, but I have no idea what the cards actually are. And I have some idea. We know that the numbers 1 through 5 are in each suit, and we also know that there's a star card and a garlic card for each suit. So I do have some information, right? I know that, for example, my red cards, it's not the 3 or the 4, because I can see those. So it's either going to be the 1, the 2, the 5, the garlic, or the star card. Now, my opponent will also be holding up their cards like this. So Nick has a couple of red cards. Nick, can you hold those up for me so I can see what they are? So now I have 4 red cards that I'm looking at. And based on the fact that I can see all 4 of these red cards right here, I can kind of deduce what these 2 might be. Right? And that's important because there's no way for me to ever look at the front of my cards. I'm just kind of trying to decide, what can I see? What do I think that that means that I have in my hand? So the game is pretty simple. What's going to happen is at the start of a round, the start player is going to lead off the first trick by selecting any card in their hand and playing it face up to the table. And then after that, every player on their turn is going to select any card from their hand. In some trick-taking games, you have to follow suit if you can, or there are other special rules which govern how you can play and which cards you can select to play. But in this game, you can play any card you want. So the leader is going to play a card to the center of the table, and then in turn order, each player is going to play a card after that. Now, it's pretty simple as far as like what trumps what. For example, the high card of the suit is always going to be in the lead, right? So if Nick plays a red 3, we know he can't do that because it's right here, but let's just say he did. If Nick played a red 3, then if I played a red 4, then I would take the trick, right? However, in this game, we have a couple of different sort of trump cards, and these are cards that trump all the other cards no matter what is happening. So high cards are trumped by garlic cards. I'm sorry. High cards trump garlic cards. So I think that one of these cards is probably a garlic card. Based on all the red cards that I could see, I think that one of these is probably a garlic card. If I played it in a round where a high card had been led and I played the garlic, well, the high card is going to beat my garlic, so I wouldn't be able to take this trick. However, if I played the garlic in a round where a star card is played, then I will beat the star card and I will win with the garlic. If no garlic is played, however, and it's just star cards and high cards, then the star card will always beat the high card. Additionally, if you happen to play the same value as the card that was played previously, then you get a bonus point and you'll get to move down the Batwalk.
It's called stealing the show.
You stole the fashion show and you get to move a little further down the Batwalk than you would have been able to otherwise. Now, in a 2-player game, there's a slight variation on the rules, and that comes into play with these face-up cards over here. So normally what would happen is if we were playing with 3 or more players, there would not be any face-up cards, and we would instead each have a hand of cards like this, and we would only use those cards to determine what we think is in play. However, with 2 players, they play sort of like a phantom or autonoma player. And that's going to be this row of cards right here. So thematically, this is the trendsetter from last season. They came to the show like super popular already. They're very well known, and they get to start out every round. So what's going to happen is when we're playing with the 2-player game, we're going to select the leftmost card, and it's going to start off the trick. So the autonoma player leads the trick with this card right here, and then we just go in turn order. So Nick would be next, and he would play any card from his hand. He may or may not take the lead, depending on what that card happens to be, and then it would be my turn. I would play a card, and then once all 3 of us, myself, the autonoma player, and Nick had all played a card, we would determine who'd won the trick based on, which cards trump which, and that player would take the trick, and they would get to move down the Batwalk once. And that's basically the entire game. So should we try it, Nick?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right.
All right, we'll get back to you guys probably about mid-game and talk to you a little bit more about our experience with Vamp on the Batwalk. All right, so let's get into it. Toodles! Welcome back, people, and hello, Sarah.
Hi.
So, how's it going so far, Sarah?
So we've played 2 of the 3 rounds. And right now, I am in the lead with 6 points on the Batwalk.
Nice.
Nick is coming in second with 4, and our autonoma player is way back in the back with 2. So.
What do you think about this game so far?
It's really cheeky. It's very, It's definitely a fun theme. I like the presentation of the game. I think this is really cute and silly, and I like just sort of like the silly, zany fun that we're having with this theme and these mechanics. I think it's a little, the game itself is a little odd, I think, because there's very little player agency, I think. you can choose which card you're going to play, right? But you have very little information, especially in a 2-player game. But I think honestly it would escalate with higher player counts in a similar way because you add more cards the more players there are. So right now I'm going to be able to see Nick's 5 cards, the 5 cards of the Autonoma player, but I'm not going to be able to see my 5 cards or the cards that were set aside at the beginning of this round, which is an additional 6 cards. So in total, of all the cards we're playing with right now, we are playing with 21 cards, and I'm only going to be able to see 10 of them. So really, sometimes it feels like it's kind of this shot in the dark. You don't really know what you're playing. Sometimes you know, right? Like sometimes I can see every other card except mine. So I'm like, I know exactly what this is. But most of the time, you don't really know what your cards are. You kind of have a vague idea of what they might be. But even then, like right now, I have 2 red cards. When Nick holds up his cards, I'm going to be able to see 2 additional red cards, which means in total, I'll be able to see 3 of the 7 red cards. So like I said, I'll have a little bit of idea what my 2 cards are, my 2 red cards are, but even if I could see all of the other red cards, I still have no idea which one this is versus which one this is, right? So it kind of feels like this just kind of shot in the dark where you're like, you know, even if I know that like my 2 red cards are a 4 and a garlic, right? Like even if I know that, I still have to like blindly choose which of them I think might be the one that I want to play that round. And that feels like I don't have a lot of player agency. So I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it right now. What do you think, Nick?
I agree. The player agency, like with the cards, you just play them. Honestly, you make the best guess, and then you just kind of go with the flow of the game, which is
probably thematic, right? Like fashion shows, you kind of like just hope for the best kind of thing, like prepare as much as you can, but then like kind of hope for the best.
Yeah, I'm not. It seems like this one's too like light, and even for a filler game, I don't even know if I could say it's something that I could get into because you're just playing, and it's not even a game I would want to play as like a decompressing game. And another thing that I see a lot in our games is kind of like not such a runaway leader problem. Sometimes we've had games where the person was there's no way to catch up to that person. But there's people that get left behind in the back. Like, okay, so our Autonoma player is all the way back there. I mean, we're playing in our last round, and you have to win every single thing to even get close or even win. And if you mess up once, boom, you're done.
So we've played this game a few times. We've played 3 or 4 games, I think, of a 2-player game. We played 1 4-player game.
I think we played a couple 4-player games. I think it was just maybe 1 or 2.
I think it was only 1. It may have been 2 4-player games with my parents.
Yeah.
We all kind of felt like there wasn't a lot you could really do aside from some simple deduction, and even that, like we're not going to have all the information. For example, I have 3 yellow cards this round. Nick has 1. The Autonoma player has 2. So Nick is going to have the most information of all of us to be able to determine what his yellow card is. However, there's one over here that nobody got dealt. So Nick will know that his 1 yellow card is one of 2 possible cards, either the one in his hand or whatever this is, right? And he's not going to know which one is which. So even when you can deduce what your card is, which to me is the most fun, looking around to see if you can deduce what you've got in your hand. Even if you can do that, because we're not playing with all the cards, there's a chance that you don't have perfect information, right? So you can't accurately deduce every single time what you have in your hand. And then it just, like I said earlier, it just becomes kind of like let's just try this and see what happens. And it makes it feel like all of the agency you had in the deduction sort of phase of the game like goes right out the window, because then you have to make a choice, which is kind of based on the deductions you've made, but really it doesn't matter what you deduced because you still have to just sort of make a choice that you're doing blindly.
Yeah, and see, even that sometimes isn't really, you have to make a deduction and then you have to just kind of roll with it with this game. But I think the thing that kind of gets me sometimes, or more often than not, is just someone getting left behind or someone just stealing the show. Thematically, but I mean, still,
because you can actually do that mechanically.
Yeah,
so,
but I mean, it's not fun when you're in an early round or even halfway through the second round, and you're going to the third round. Like, okay, well, am I even going to be able to win? Should I just kind of resign now? And
one of the practice games we played, we encountered a situation where, like, seriously, just by chance, I just kept getting points and points and points, and eventually I was like way up here.
You were at 10 already,
and Nick was like in the back, and like
and the atomic player was maybe one ahead of me.
There was a point before I even got to the end of the Batwalk here. I was like around 7 or 8 or something like that, and we figured out that based on the number of rounds left in the game, even if Nick played perfectly, there was no way he would be able to overtake me.
Or I think it was I had to play perfectly, and I think we could already tell that the Autonoma player was already showing us that there. I mean, I wouldn't have to. I wouldn't be able to win, even with the first card.
So I don't know if it's an issue where it needed to be play tested more, or maybe play tested at like the 2-player game more. Like I said, we did play the 1 or 2 4-player games, and that was more interesting to me because you could see more information in theory. But even then, like I said, for every player you add a deck of cards. So if we were to add another player right now, we'd add in a whole nother 7 cards and only deal out 5. So 2 more cards. We'd be able to see 5 more cards, but 2 more cards would be put into this stack over here that we wouldn't even get to know what they are. So it's got an interesting premise, and I really, really like the theme. I think it's a really fun theme, and it's not a theme that I've ever seen before, vampires having a fashion show. I like the way that they've used the box to create this really thematic score track. Even though it's a little bit larger than life, it's not entirely necessary to have this big thing. I think it's really fun. It's really thematic. I think that they did a really nice job incorporating the theme in all of these components. But I think that the mechanics themselves are actually kind of disappointing and a little bit lackluster in my opinion.
Well, let's get back into it and finish out Vamp on the Batwalk. And yeah, we'll get to you guys and talk to you guys after we finish up. Alright, toodles! Welcome back, Meeple people, and hello, Sarah.
Hi.
So, how did the game end?
Kind of anticlimactically.
Yep.
When you're playing with 2 players, you play with an Autonoma, as I said before. If the Autonoma player ever reaches 5 points, they win and the game is immediately over. And that's what happened.
And well, that's what happened, yeah.
Yep.
That was no. What were you saying earlier, Sarah, about something about player agency? Yeah.
So, that was that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I think that the theme is really fun. I think their implementation of the theme in the components was really, really nicely done.
Agreed.
I think that this is more fun with more players.
Definitely.
But I still think that it has the aforementioned problems, even with more players. And I think that if you are looking for a light, casual trick-taking game with a fun theme that can support a lot of players, this is definitely one you should check out, especially if you don't mind not having perfect information. And there are a lot of trick-taking games where you don't have perfect information, right? In fact, I know of more where you do not have perfect information than ones that you do. So if that doesn't bother you, then I would definitely try this one if you like trick-taking games, especially if you're going to have a higher player count.
Yeah. Definitely.
So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. It was a little sad when the Autonoma player just came and stole the show.
Yeah.
And it's just ugh.
Especially because I was in the lead.
Yeah, you were in the lead, and then all of a sudden it didn't matter when then the the time a player got to 5, it was like, well, that's it.
We were in the final round, so depending on, and we were, I think it was the second to last card, right?
Yes.
So like I almost had the game in the bag, but apparently not.
Apparently not.
Last season's showrunner is still the favorite.
All right, Sarah. So this was our vlog of Vamp on the Boardwalk, Batwalk, and by Jellyfish Game Studios. And we hope you all enjoyed our vlog on it. So until next time, oh my. So until next time, we'll talk to you guys later. Toodles!